So I would like to revisit a BBC that I did. I was trying to remember how long ago it's been, probably about 6 or 7 weeks, where I was sharing some of the conditions that one has to have to do retreat. And after that BBC, Venerable Children in the community, we had a little conversation about what I had shared with, and Venerable added some and changed some points and really helped to clarify some of the points that I wanted to share. And so I wanted to revisit that and do bring some clarity to that conversation. So I was sharing about the conditions that one needs to do to have retreat. And Venerable said that those 6 conditions, which I'll share a little bit part today and another day, is that they're basically for long-term retreats. And she said, long-term, we're talking minimum 1 year. 1 year, and then people who are in retreat for 3 years. People who are in retreat for very much most of their lives. So we're talking about very senior practitioners, people who have practiced for years and years and years. So I had said something like 3-month retreat and a weekend retreat. And I just wanted to kind of revisit knowing that some of these conditions make sense to have if we're going to do a short retreat. But they're not as important as for those people who are really committing themselves to doing retreat for the long term. The other thing that she helped clarify is she says for you to be able, even before doing, or as part of some of the conditions, is that you've got to have a very, very deep understanding of what it is that you're going to be taking into retreat, what you're going to be practicing. And part of the conditions, as I'll share, having a spiritual mentor who guides you, who really, you talk to and thinks that you are indeed capable of doing long retreat. These are huge experiences, and if you don't have a solid basis in your practice, it's not going to be fruitful, and if anything, probably going to get into trouble mentally. She said there are 3, she said, okay, let's say for instance a shamatha retreat. You have to have an extremely stable, focused mind and have been practicing shamatha, because she said the long-term retreats for that are really trying to meditate on calm abiding and insight. So to even get to the point where you're thinking about conjoining those in your meditation practice, you would have had to have years and years of getting your mind to where it could single-pointedly concentrate on a virtuous object for quite a long period of time. We're not, my misunderstanding personally is that I thought going into retreat would help me have a better practice. Like I'd go in sort of knowing what I was doing, but retreat would help me. You have to be so clear about what you're doing before you get into retreat, because the retreat's really to get it deeper and deeper and actually perhaps even have some realizations. I mean, I don't know, to that extent, but you have to be so strong. If you want to do a deity retreat, whatever deity you're doing, I mean, the sadhana practice must be so much a part of your mind. I mean, to be able to call it up, to know every detail of the visualizations and, dissolving into emptiness and reappearing. And it's a very advanced practice where you have to really have a deep understanding of the deity to whom you're going to do this retreat on, and that you have to have it almost as kind of it has to be able to come without having to look in a book or to remember or to sort of refresh your memory. That deity sadhana has to be really very much a part of your mind, and you have had to have practiced it for years and years and really call that deity a very, very special karmic connection with you. And then the third one, she said, is that you can do a very long retreat on Lam Rim, which would be fabulous. But it's not like taking your sheets in there and every day going, okay, what do I want to do today? The Lam Rim topics must be, I would think, this is just my assumption, is that you have to know the topics pretty much where they are in the initial, the middle, advanced scope, and to be able to conceptually walk yourself through each one of those topics and to come to the correct conclusion through that whole thing. I mean, you can't go in there and just every day figure out what you want to do. I mean, it's got to be very, very much planned and very much clearly understood on what you're going to be doing. And then the other thing that she said, 2 wonderful words of advice that she had gotten from Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe many years ago, is that Lama Zopa said, doing retreat is not about being in a secluded place, but retreating from our afflictions. So if we want to retreat from our afflictions, we can do that. Well, that's a full-time job right there. And that we can do that in our practice every day. We can do that on a little weekend that we want to give to ourselves. We can do that anytime a difficult situation comes up. So he said, don't get too caught on this environmental, quiet place up in a mountain or a cabin somewhere. You can retreat, but the main retreat will be identifying the afflictions, using the antidotes, counteracting them, and really watching one's mind. And that indeed is a very deep, consistent practice that requires a lot of commitment, a lot of understanding of the Dharma. And then the other one that Lama Yeshe shared with, that was back in the 70s when all the Westerners went to Kopan and everybody wanted to do retreat. They wanted to go hide themselves up in the mountains somewhere and just, I think all of us, at least I have a very romantic notion of long retreats. He said that, and I don't know whether he was referring just to Westerners or just generally people in general, is that he said group retreats are the best because they really help one keep the discipline because you have a group of people who are supporting each other. So any chance of just kind of getting wobbly in your schedule and your own discipline is that you have other people to support you. And he said that even in solitary meditation retreats, whether they're in Asia or in the West here, there are usually places where everybody has their individual cabin or whatever, but there's usually a group doing things at the same time. So you're not out in the middle of nowhere all by yourself. Many times these long-term retreats are supported by people who offer food, that there's some sort of structure and some sort of support from the outside, but the group itself supports each other even though they may not see each other frequently. They may check in, every once in a while, but it's rare to find somebody who has the causes and conditions, has the practice, has the mind to be able to go out in the middle of nowhere and just go ahead and do solitary retreat for years. So I just wanted to, and that they say that many times the teacher is nearby, or the teacher comes into the retreat, frequently enough, and really checks in with all the retreats to make sure how are they doing with their practice, how are they doing with their minds, what are the difficulties, what are the obstacles. And there you can see how then the conditions for doing retreat, they really increase the chances of having a very, very fruitful one because you've got that kind of support. But once again, and I'll go over the conditions the next time that I share with you, is to get a reality check on who is actually capable of doing these. Not to say that all of us who are serious practitioners can start to create the cause and conditions to do that. But for the most part, I'm not ready. I would like to be ready one day, and I think I'm creating the cause and conditions to do that. But for a year or more, and with all of these wonderful, very deep, practiced understandings to really be able to do it and have great fruit and to bear great fruit from the retreat and not to come out of it thinking that you've changed when in fact you haven't. So, let's all try to create the cause and conditions to one day, sometime, be able to do retreat with fellow practitioners so that we can progress along the path as quickly as possible. Thanks.